like to pick up from where we left off. Okay, so we know, right, that to help children build uh, their literacy, we need to also build language and teach children how to decode or encode that language to print. So we need to help them master that alphabetic principle. But what are the best ways to do that? Well, if we look at this picture, right, we kind of understand that, children are not just made up of brain activity. There are other components to a child, and we've heard of this term before of nurturing the whole child, that children are made up of many different things. And this quote, I think, is really important to understand too. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. So we've kind of moved away from um, this kind of understanding that learning just takes place in the brain, right? Children are more than just functioning brains, right? So learning literacy is not just a cognitive ability; it's only a piece, really. The field really has moved from just thinking about what happens in kids' minds to learn language and literacy to what happens in their environments, right? So on the one hand, this the the cognitive aspect of learning language is important, but there are other components, and namely that environment. And these kind of two things interact, and they interact with why people do what they do. When we're talking about the environment, we're also talking about, not just the school environment, but we're talking about children's home and their communities. These things help build their beliefs and their feelings about their understandings of the world, but also about the ways that they can, their self-efficacy, whether or not they can do a task. And so this is going to, in turn, motivate their behavior. So from this more encompassing model comes ideas about motivation and identity, culture responsive pedagogies. All of this is understanding that people are not born in a box, that there is a social context. So that's where we kind of get this term of, a comprehensive literacy program. So, children, as we spoke about before, they build their language through interactions in the home and community. So learning language serves a purpose early on in development. If children want to express their needs, feelings, and communicate, they have to engage in conversations. So children are motivated to learn because the language activity is grounded in meaning making. So it's an authentic task and motivational. So we just can't say, kids need to learn their letters and sounds and drill them in phonics, because we're missing the point of literacy, which is to communicate rather, and kind of interconnect us and create meaning. That's the motivation. And if children are using language in ways to communicate through written texts, we have to consider children's culture, because language is laced with cultural meanings and beliefs, and different communities use language in different ways, which we'll discuss in a lot more detail later. So yes, literacy is a cognitive function, but it takes place within a social context. So best practices, they're derived from this understanding that literacy activities should be authentic while supporting intentionally various skill sets children need to be able to read and write. Simultaneously, these things should be going on within our planning. And that's where we get this term comprehensive.